Hey everyone, it's Michael Kikle. I hope you're doing well today. Sorry it's been a little while. I've been busy. I've been watching other shows alongside this show. But I finally have a review for another season of Power Rangers. This is for Power Rangers Turbo, and it came out in 1997. It ran till 98. It's about 50 some odd episodes, something like that. Now, this is the thing. I reviewed recently the Power Rangers Turbo movie. I haven't really been making a lot of content on any of my channels recently because I've just been busy trying to watch things, and my wife and I got back into a new church, and we're really loving that. So anyway, I've been kind of busy on my weekends. I've been kind of busy with personal life stuff, taking care of people like my mom, and obviously being a husband, a lot comes with that. So anyway, watching a lot of different shows. I watched The Twilight Zone. I'm almost done with that. I have like one more disc, and I have one more disc of the Mummy animated series. Yeah, the Brendan Fraser films had a Mummy cartoon on Kids WB back when I was a kid, and I saw a lot of that as it premiered, and I liked it. So I wanted to watch through that. I just got disc 3 recently. I got the first 2 and the movie that was a few episodes edited into a movie for Christmas for my mom. And I've been rewatching that on the side of this show, like I said, and now I'm finally on to this, Power Rangers Turbo, that I worked into the schedule and finally finished. It took me like 2 months, but here I am. And I gotta say, I'm gonna have a lot to say about this. Of course, going into Power Rangers Turbo, I knew there would, number one, be a lot of changes. Number two, I knew that this was like the least popular season of Power Rangers, at least in the original shows, like Zeo, like Mighty Morphin, Lost in Space, in Space, whatever it's called, Lost Galaxy, all the different series that were out there. I knew this was like the most unpopular. Now, the Turbo movie I've seen a few times in my life. As I said, I recently reviewed it, and I knew that that was not a great movie. It barely has Power Rangers in it. It's mostly everybody out of their costumes. So I didn't really know what to expect going into this, even though I was excited because I've never seen this show. I've never seen a single episode of the show growing up, and I was curious about what I would think of it as a first-time viewer. Now, there's a lot that I have to talk about with this, so just letting you know ahead of time, if you haven't seen the show, I'm going to delve into a little bit of spoilers here and there, cast member changes, that kind of thing, which happens a lot with this season. But there's a lot of other things that kind of start up and then they die out. And yeah, there's a lot. So anyway, Power Rangers Turbo is a car-themed season, which is so cool. I love the new costumes for the Turbo Rangers. They looked good in the movie. They look really good here. That being said, there's a lot of complaints I have surrounding different things. Divatox, the villain from the movie, is back here as well. It's a different actress for most of the season. The original actress from the movie comes back, which is great because I really love the actress from the film. The one here, for the majority of this show, is not good. And apparently she filled in because the chick that played her in the movie was apparently pregnant or had a baby somewhere in that time frame, so she went on leave, even though she was supposed to be Divatox the entire series of Turbo. I don't really know all the ins and outs. That's all I know. They did change up the costume. They got rid of, like, the whole slit down to her belly button, which was kind of fun. But anyway, I guess I'll start from the beginning of my list of notes that I finally took. And yeah, to help you all out with a more, maybe concise, I guess you could say, review, I decided to take notes this time around. I'm going to start doing that with a lot of the shows I review because it's important. And otherwise, I feel like I don't get to say everything I wanted to say. It should be wise to do that, but I am dumb, so forgive me. Anyway, the first thing on my list here, the new theme song, just like many things in the Power Rangers Turbo season, is not great. You know, Zeo basically had the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers theme with a couple of changes, maybe some new guitar melodies, maybe sped up even faster than Mighty Morphin's theme song was. But it had this way that they sung the lyrics that I really liked, but it basically said "Go Go Zeo Rangers" a lot, you know? But it was a good theme song. This one is cool for the car theme, but I don't know if I like this theme song as much. Definitely not as bad as some of the later stuff I've seen in the future, like the Netflix era and stuff. Not that I've seen any of that stuff, but I've seen like the intros for those shows because I tried my best over the years not to spoil those things, hoping eventually I could get to them and watch them freshly. The theme songs obviously get a lot worse as time goes on. I think Nickelodeon had Power Rangers for a while too, so that could be part of the problem. Maybe a lack of care. I don't know. It's a kid's show. I feel like these bigger companies don't care about that. But anyway, the theme song here is not horrible. I just don't know if I like it. It's kind of lame. Again, just like a lot of the show. There's I guess I could go into some of the choices with the casting stuff. Many of you know Bulk and Skull I love from Mighty Morphin. They kind of got on my nerves towards the end of Mighty Morphin. I kind of got sick of their weird hijinks, you know? And in this season, they decide, and by the way, Zeo, they really, really annoyed me with all the private eye stuff. Here, they're doing different jobs. They have to be out of high school by now. I guess no one is in this season. But they're still in, like, a place trying to get jobs and stuff. They are turned into monkeys. Yeah. They're fucking monkeys in this particular season, for most of it at least. Like a good, probably up to halfway. A little bit, somewhere in there. And it was driving me nuts. I would not, if it were me as an actor, I would never get near monkeys, dude. Have you heard all the stories about these things just going crazy or bananas and eating people's faces? It's happened a lot. You don't mess with monkeys, dude. They're strong. They look like tiny children, you know, chimps and stuff. You don't mess with them, dude. I understand they can mostly be friendly, but bro, people like me have like a real fear of a lot of things, and monkeys are one of those things, dude. So I'm just saying, these actors and actresses are brave to have these things touching their face and near their eyes and stuff. Bro, that thing could just claw your eyeball out of your head like it was nothing. But anyway, that was a very gruesome thing to go into for a Power Rangers review, but I had to say it. Bulk and Skull are mostly monkeys here, and the worst part about it is that they keep trying to communicate to everybody around them that, hey, we're Bulk and Skull, please help us turn back into humans. And no one understands them. At all. Yeah. Of course, the majority of our cast from Zeo come into here, from the Turbo movie specifically, I guess. Because, like, Justin, the little boy, is still here. You have Adam, you have Tommy being the Red Ranger. You have everybody, basically. Kat is still here. Is her name Aisha, the Yellow Ranger? I'm pretty sure her name is Aisha. It's cool seeing all of them come back again. That does not last long. About 20 episodes into this 50-some-odd episode season, they all leave, except for the little boy Justin, who was from the Turbo movie, like I said. He sticks around, so you still have a little kid Blue Ranger who magically turns into an adult Blue Ranger every time he transforms into his Power Ranger costume. But everybody else gets replaced, literally by people that you've barely met in other episodes. You might have an appearance of one character here and there, like on a soccer field, or like over here doing a dress rehearsal. There might be a massive earthquake where like the Power Rangers witness somebody that ends up taking over their character of Power Ranger color, whatever, or their spot. I don't know what to call it on the team. But they'll witness this person like trying to guide people into a building in like an earthquake, and they're like, oh, that's the one right there. Not just, oh, that person's a nice person. No, they don't go for like, oh, this person's athletic, just like me and all my buddies are. Or, oh, this person probably knows martial arts like all of my friends and I do. They don't do that. They don't vet these people. They just see them do like one good deed, and they're like, oh, well, that's the guy right there. That's who needs to take over. Literally, 2 of them come into town on a bus and meet there for the first time, and then they meet everybody else getting stuck on a little adventure. And one of them, TJ, ends up leading the team after Tommy leaves. Yeah, this is Jason David Frank's last time as Tommy in the original shows. He comes back later on at certain points, just like Adam does. But, yeah, he's mostly like, this is like the end of it. And I can tell you from the get-go, all of the Rangers, I don't know what was going on behind the scenes, but you can tell when you watch this season from beginning to the midpoint where all of the Rangers leave, you can tell they are not happy. I don't know what was going on. If it was the falling out with, like, for example, the guy who played Jason, I can't remember his name right now, I'm so sorry. The guy who played Zack, again, I can't remember his name. I'm sorry. I'm not good with names, man. I don't know if it was something to do with that and like Jason David Frank, who played Tommy, realizing maybe there was something to what they were saying, how they needed more pay. I don't really know what was going on with all that. But no joke, there's like a two-parter, and then all of a sudden everybody just leaves, except for that Justin kid. So now you have all these newbies, right? And when the next episode picks up, it's like nothing ever happened. It's like nothing at all ever happened. We just immediately start jumping in, like all of these people who were not really friends outside of becoming new Power Rangers, they're all like the best of friends. There is no time to develop that. They immediately, for the sake of week-to-week television or day-to-day television, depending on how Power Rangers airs a lot of the time, we just jumped right into they're all best friends now, including the small boy who is a Power Ranger, who is now technically, even though it's been like a month or maybe a week or so, he is technically the longest reigning Power Ranger at this current point since everybody else left. Yes. And not only that, they say, okay, Justin is such a smart, geeky Billy type that now we're going to have him basically be moved into high school, even though he's like 9 or 10 or 11 years old, because he's that smart. So again, like Billy, he's kind of the geek of the group. He helps out Alpha 5, who is not really Alpha 5, by the way. I'll get to that in a second. Well, I guess I can get into it now. Zordon and Alpha 5 leave. Zordon is going back to his home planet. He takes Alpha 5 with him. The Rangers stay where they are in the power center, whatever it is. Power chamber? I can never get this place named correctly. But they get a new leader named Demetrix, I think is her name, which is the same actress playing Divatox, just with like a gypsy costume and like a gypsy thing over her face, covering her mouth and her nose. She moves in slow motion. It's very weird and angelic in a weird way. But she goes in the tube, even though she wasn't in a tube before, So Zordon's gone. Alpha 5 is gone. But they get another robot that looks just like Alpha 5. It's called Alpha 6, right? This may be the beginning, aside from the monkey thing. And by the way, all this change-up happened before Tommy and all of the other Rangers that we grew up with from Mighty Morphin and Zeo. This change-up with Zordon and Alpha happens before they all leave, But this is the thing. The new Alpha is Alpha 6, which I've never heard of. I know I saw Power Rangers in Space, and I know I saw Lost Galaxy on TV as it premiered. I must have thought Alpha was the same person. I know that Alpha is supposed to be in those seasons as well. Apparently it's not Alpha 5 that we all love. Apparently it was Alpha 6, and I never picked up on the distinguishing different voice that he had, unless it just changed going into those shows. I don't know. I haven't started In Space, or Lost Galaxy, obviously, to rewatch them for these reviews yet. But Alpha 6 talks like Andrew Dice Clay. I'm not even fucking kidding. I guess because he was kind of a cool thing once upon a time. No one my age knows who Andrew Dice Clay is, but because he was cool at one point, and by the way, he's a comedian in case you don't know who that is, they basically have Alpha 6's voiceover actor doing an impression of him. So Alpha will be like, "Hey, yo, where are the Power Rangers? Hickory dickory dock, I've got a robotic cock." That's what he does constantly. It's fucking obnoxious. I'm telling you, I have never in my life wanted to ban a character from a TV show like I have Alpha 6. I fucking hate Alpha 6. And as the season went on, as we got new Rangers, as Bulk and Skull became humans again, and so on, as we did that, they kind of toned down the Alpha 6, not only the voice and the Andrew Dice Clay impressions and the goofy, trying so hard to be funny jokes with that character and that voice, they almost don't even have Alpha in a lot of the episodes as the season progresses. Like, by the end of it, Alpha seems to barely be there until the big finale of the season, which is fine with me. I really hope in Lost in Space or whatever, in Lost Galaxy, I really, really, really hope that we do not have that horrible voice over and over again. And Richard Stephen Horvitz, who had been playing Alpha, apparently is not here anymore for this. which is wild to me. So the big change up, and again, I don't like change, but I know Power Rangers from this point on, season to season, changes a lot. New cast like every season, just like Super Sentai, the original show they use footage from, typically did every season. I'm cool with that. I really am. Not trying to pick with this show and stuff. But constantly this season is change after change after change, which the changes begin to affect the quality of the show a lot. The Divatox thing is a big example. The new actress playing her is not very good. I'll be honest with you. She's okay as Demetrix or whatever, because Demetrix was not in the movie. She's okay here, though, as that character, but as Divatox, it's not really as good as the original actress. And by the way, that original actress, I don't know if I mentioned this or not, she does come back in, like in the last 15 or so episodes, which I was really happy with because she's really, really good there. And when she comes back, they keep Demetrix as the newer actress that was already there for the beginning of the show. And I'm glad about that. They have both of them there. They tease at one point early in the show that Demetrix would have a twin sister, which I'm assuming is what they're going to go into in Lost in Space or Lost Galaxy or something. I'm assuming that will happen at some point, that those two are sisters, because of the same actress playing Demetrix by the end of the show. How she was playing both characters early on, they kind of look the same between the two actresses by the end of the show coming together on the show. Anyway, that's all very confusing. The point is, I think for the people who watched this season, you get what I'm trying to say. It's very obvious as a kid's show, that's the direction they're going with Demetrix and Divatox being possibly related. But all this change is too much for me. I guess I'll go on to the new Power Rangers. First and foremost, as I mentioned, we have a new fella who's the first ever black Red Ranger, TJ. I remember seeing TJ in Power Rangers in Space. I think he's in Lost Galaxy. I could be wrong about that. But I remember specifically seeing him in Space. I think he's like the Blue Ranger or something there. But I remember always liking him. And even though he is not, and let me repeat this for every one of the new cast members, and I mean this about all of them, including Justin, who was already there, they are not good actors. But I like the characters, I like the actors they pick to play these characters. Even though they're not very good actors, I like them as they are, as people. TJ, the guy is not a good actor. However, when it comes to being the Red Ranger, in the costume itself, as cool as the costumes look now, he looks better in the Red Ranger costume from Turbo than Tommy does in the early part of the season. Tommy, to me, looked like he lost a lot of muscle mass when the season starts up. I don't know if he just didn't have time to work out with the Power Ranger shooting schedules or what, but TJ looks great in the costume. He has kind of a long neck when they have him with the white part of the neck on the actual Turbo costume. That's a little distracting sometimes, but physically, like his arms and stuff, the dude is cut, man. He's really, really good in that role, even though he's not a good actor. Physically, he's good for that. You have a character that I could have sworn was named Jessie when her and TJ come into town on the bus, and they're kind of stranded in Angel Grove. Her name apparently is Cassie. Now, I could have sworn that this was Jackie Velasquez, or Jackie Vasquez, whatever her name is. If you don't know who that is, she's apparently a Christian singer, I think she is, of some sort, who was in this movie that was the movie that got me saved back in the day, called The Encounter. I don't think that's her, but it looks a lot like her to me, at least what I remember of Jackie Vasquez looking like in The Encounter. It's been a while. I watched the movie over and over again years ago, so it's been a while since I've seen it. It's probably not her. I don't have IMDb pulled up right now. I'm looking at my notes, so forgive me for that. But that girl reminds me a lot of Jackie Vasquez, and I kept thinking this character, Jessie, Cassie, whatever her name is supposed to be, looked like a Power Ranger I remember seeing growing up. Turns out she's in the next season or two of the shows as well, so I did know her from something, which explains a lot. And she's a cute Asian girl. Really sweet, kind of like a punk character at first, like not with like spiky bracelets and stuff, but just kind of tough, and then she becomes really girly. They kind of change up her character a whole lot. You have a new Yellow Ranger named Ashley, who is a total babe. She's not utilized as well. It kind of reminds me how when Adam was first brought into Mighty Morphin back in the day, how they really didn't give him a whole lot of speaking roles and stuff. She's kind of treated that way too. Even Justin, the little boy Blue Ranger, is treated more respectfully in the script writing and character scenes and whatever than Ashley is, which is a shame to me. Let's see. We have a new Green Ranger taking over for Adam. And this one I'm not really sure how to feel about. It's kind of a bummer, man. For anybody who doesn't remember, in the 90s, every time you had a Hispanic boy character, for whatever reason, they were never named like Pablo or like Jose. They're always called Carlos, and they always like soccer because soccer is so prominent in Hispanic culture. They call this guy Carlos, and I like the actor. Like I said, he's not a good actor, but I like him. He seems very cool. Seems like he'd be a cool guy behind the scenes. It's weird having these people who look even more adult, even though they're in high school. They all look so adult, more so than like Tommy and Adam and all of them looked by the beginning of this season. And they're hanging out with Justin, a little boy. And even by the end of this season, they've still not graduated from school. Which I'm like, what the fuck are we doing? Are you joking? Really? Really? Yeah, it ain't perfect. But this new cast is the beginning of the falling of the show. The show was not great when it starts up. Of course, you had all the villains coming back from the movie, Diva Tox, her Freddy Krueger nephew, and the other nephews and stuff, and their submarine ship on the Earth. All that stuff was cool. And I like how this show, by the way, acknowledges the Turbo movie, unlike how Mighty Morphin cannot really acknowledge the Mighty Morphin movie back in the day. Not really, not canonically it can't. Even the costumes are never in the show from that movie. It's very strange how this one acknowledges that movie in the beginning of the season. But the monsters themselves that the Rangers have to fight from beginning to end of the season, they are not good. There's one, for example, that's like a toothpaste monster. Yeah. There are monsters that at one point can turn the Power Rangers, no joke, and I hate this because many people who know me know that I hate this storytelling device. They can shrink the Rangers into like tiny insect-sized people. I hate when everything from Power Rangers to Goosebumps to Dragon Ball Z does that to characters at points. Dude, please, in the future, anybody creating a property right now that may be listening to this video, please, I am begging you, do not do a shrinking person story. It is so overdone. I'm so sick of seeing that shit in literally everything I watch now that I'm watching through a lot of older TV shows and cartoons and stuff that I grew up on as box sets. You see it in everything. I'm so sick of seeing that storytelling method. It's lazy. It's stupid. Anyway, yes, a lot of the monsters in this season are not good. Most of them are completely obliterated from my brain. I have no reason to remember them at all. Just thought I would tell you that. Let's see. Let's talk about the Megazord really quick. Well, I guess I'll talk about the fights and then I'll talk about the Megazord. Because I was on this ball that I was going to talk about this and I dropped it. When the new Rangers take over, the fights get even worse than they started out in the earlier parts of the season with the original cast. The fights already were getting sloppy in Zeo. They're way worse when Tommy and them are still here on the show. And I don't know if it's a carelessness from the actors, like a refusal to make it look as great as possible, but even moving the camera a little to the left, a little to the right, could have framed these scenes to make the fights look better. In Zeo, a lot of the time, and towards the end of Mighty Morphin, you could tell, even as a child, which I had never seen any of this as a child, but still, you could tell there were a lot of scenes where people were punching at somebody and they completely did not hit them and that person still reacted like they got hit. Or like they, quote-unquote, tripped somebody, I say with air quotes, and that foot came nowhere near somebody's feet. You know, they just jumped backwards and did like a backflip and landed on the ground on their ass. That happens a lot more in Turbo. More than Zeo ever did, more than the end of Mighty Morphin with the Alien Ranger stuff ever did. It will drive you nuts watching that happen over and over and over again. I just don't see an excuse for it. I don't see any reason why that was done the way it was. Again, it seems to be the mentality of this is a kid's show, so we shouldn't put effort in. And these are fight scenes most of the time that are being done with the American actors. You can tell from the physicality in the cutting of the Red Ranger TJ when he takes over in the role. Those fights are horrible in this season. And like I said, when the new cast takes over, it's worse. It's way worse. It's especially worse. Probably the worst fights I've seen in Power Rangers ever. At least at this point of watching the show. And Mighty Morphin's tail end, especially with the Alien Rangers saga for like 10 episodes, all of that was really, really horrible. I mean, really horrible. Zeo had a lot of stupid fights. But then, like in this season, you have Power Rangers fighting like the Piranhatrons or whatever. They're like robotic piranha fish-looking putties, essentially, but they're not putties. But they're the henchmen monsters, whatever. They're so lame. I don't like them anywhere as much as I like the clock people, the whatever they're called, the clock henchmen from the previous season in Zeo. They were great. I loved that. One thing I need to talk about too, the footage interspersed for Megazord fights and regular fights too, when it's the Japanese Super Sentai footage. The cameras were getting better and better here in America. They were still trying to use Japanese footage. And dude, the Sentai footage used in this season is way more distracting and horribly blurry than Zeo's was. A lot of people like myself trashed Zeo for how bad the editing of those two films were put together from the original show and the new show from America. It looked bad there a lot. It looks way worse here. I would say to the point that it gets so distracting that I probably could have noticed it here even more so than Zeo. It's shockingly an eyesore in a lot of ways, just so you know. Now, let's talk about the Megazords. They have two different ones for this season. The first one I really like a lot. The only thing about it that I don't like is that it has it obviously supposed to have a grill on its face, just like the cars, because it's a car-themed show, and because the Power Rangers themselves, their new helmets have a grill around the eyes and the mouth and stuff. That's a cool aesthetic. However, this Megazord looks like it has a football helmet on. Tell me it doesn't. It totally does. It makes me laugh. But I like that particular Megazord design. It's one of my favorites from the show when I was growing up, into the mid-2000s when I was still watching, I believe. I really dig that Power Ranger design for this Megazord. But then the second one they got in was kind of in season 2 or 3 of Mighty Morphin, when you had the Ninja Zord and whatever. Never been a fan of that Megazord as much. That's kind of what the secondary Zord in this season reminds me of, and I don't like it at all. It looks so tacky and clunky. It looks like a bunch of stuff just piled up together, you know? Now, one thing I want to talk about too, there is, when the Megazord is formed in this season, you have cars, since all the Power Rangers are car-themed this time, driving together. They're individual vehicles that are massive, like the size of buildings, These things are driving up the street and stuff and driving through dirt roads and stuff and combining into the Megazord, and it's sick. However, there's one particular scene in the season where there's a showdown in the desert or in the wilderness or whatever, and when the I almost said Transformers, when the cars are trying to battle Divatox's villains and whatever out in the dirt canyons or Grand Canyon, whatever they're in, it is so freaking cool to see this really great car chase done with these toy cars that they used for the Megazord pieces of each Power Ranger. And it's like when the original Power Rangers are still around for this season. That chase scene out in the dirt was so sick. I don't know how they did the majority of that. I really don't. It was so well filmed, dude, even though it was clearly practical effects with toys and probably RC cars and stuff for this. But the chase itself was so well done. It just has dirt flying everywhere from the tires. You have clouds of smoke everywhere from the tires and stuff. The Red Ranger getting pinned against the wall by the Freddy Krueger-looking nephew of Divatox when they're driving side by side on the canyon. There was so much cool shit they did with this car chase. If you've not seen the scene I'm talking about, You should try to look it up on YouTube, see if they have it up somewhere. No joke, it was like a 5 or 10 minute long scene of this car chase out in the dirt areas. And the way it was set up was so much better than the every episode when a Megazord is brought together with all the cars and stuff. It's clearly that scene, but expanded. But it looks so much better in that car chase moment. It was high octane, dude. For real. Seriously. Now, there's also scenes, too, when the Power Rangers are in regular, like, I'm assuming this is the Sentai footage. I could be wrong. Because it looked updated enough that it was probably American footage. But the Power Rangers also get go-karts in this season that they drive around on the streets. And there are chase scenes in the streets like that are really well shot. Again, kind of high octane for those too. I really liked that in case you haven't seen those scenes before. It kind of made the season worth watching for me. That's a big thing too, is this season actually worth watching? If you're a Power Rangers completionist, if you've never seen Turbo, I don't know if I could tell you that it's worth watching, to be honest, because it's kind of bad. Even when the old cast is here, it's kind of bad. But as the season went on, it progressively got worse and worse. And it must have been such a bad case either behind the scenes or in Saban itself as a company. Again, I'm not really sure if the ratings is what changed up to the next season, because in space, the next upcoming season, I've heard my whole life that is the best Power Rangers season. I've heard that forever, and apparently it's because it gets so dark. Apparently it really delves into darker storytelling, which I think would benefit Power Rangers a lot. I think the movie from like 2017, 2018 really did that well in a way that really complemented what I wanted Power Rangers to be my whole life and didn't realize it, you know? But it really worked there. In space, I remember being dark. Lost Galaxy, I remember being kind of dark when I was a kid, compared to like Mighty Morphin VHS tapes and stuff I grew up on. But the go-karts and stuff in here, the colors, again, the show is very colorful. Those things, including these new actors, not so much the character or the writing of those new actors, but the actors themselves, made this show fun to watch. So I wouldn't say completely turn off Turbo if you haven't seen it before, or just skip it or whatever. It kind of depends on what you're looking for. And I guess what you're willing to tolerate, because a lot of this season, again, had terrible monsters, not a whole lot of good humor that actually made you laugh. Maybe a few episodes made me actually laugh out loud. Most of it just made me want to, like, find a train to jump in front of or something. I don't know, but it all depends on what you're looking for and what you're willing to tolerate, like I said. Now, there's also a few characters I want to talk about this season. We have one that's like a police-themed alien robot that apparently I had a figure of. I remember this toy, and I think he came with a motorcycle too, called Blue Centurion. And he is so cool. I think it's funny, though, every time he talks, it's like they do a walkie-talkie thing with his voice. He's clearly like a RoboCop joke, you know? But every time he talks, you hear the little and then when he finishes up talking, it's like again, to show that he's done talking for the moment. He can be talking to you face to face, and it still does it. So it made me laugh, because usually that's radio stuff, and you say over when you finish up your sentence on a radio call. But Blue Centurion is really cool. Again, he's like a RoboCop, or like, I don't know what to explain him as, but he's a space cop on Earth now, doing weird things like filing parking tickets and shit. Who's he giving that to? The regular local police department? I don't get that. But he was fun. I really liked him. There was another character that showed up that's kind of like the Predator, you know, where he like looks like an invisible outline of a human being. He's called the Phantom Ranger. And I don't remember if they ever resolved anything with this character, because I had to take like a week off, like from the show, because I watched a lot of Twilight Zone. I watched some of the Mummy animated series I talked about earlier. My wife was working from home, so I watched all that kind of sparingly. I was a little off because my allergies are acting up too, so I didn't have a whole lot of time that I was willing to get out of bed, come downstairs, and watch TV. You know what I mean? So I don't think, and I don't recall, if they ever revealed who the Phantom Ranger was or anything like that. So just forgive me if they did, but I don't remember that. But the Blue Centurion and the Phantom Ranger were so sick. I cannot believe that I had a figure of the Blue Centurion and never knew that it was from this show. I thought that it was probably from like Beetleborgs, because it looks more like a Beetleborgs thing than a Power Rangers thing. They do a lot of the time, though, episodes where Blue Centurion is turned into a bad guy, in some way, fashion, or form. That was really cool, you know? I like that a whole lot. That made him kind of a threat. It was fun, though. I like both of those costumes for both of those guys. There's also a couple of times where we have sentient vehicles come to life. I don't know if they're like aliens or something, but one of them is a red Camaro and the other one's a blue Jeep that have all these modifications on it. The red Camaro is actually the same Camaro my grandfather had when I was growing up. It's my favorite car of all time. It's like a 94, 95 model Camaro, and it's fantastic. It's bright red, though, so most of the time the Red Ranger is using it. Most of the time the blue Jeep, the Blue Ranger, Justin, the little child, is using. But all the Power Rangers can use them, but these vehicles at first are like wild horses. They can't be trained, they can be stopped, but they also can fly. You know, specifically the red Camaro can fly. And those things at first are very rude and hateful to the Power Rangers in a very strange way. TJ manages at one point to kind of get the red Camaro to cool down, then the blue Jeep kind of comes into being broken in as well, like horses, like I said. And it was kind of a little too much for the show, but I was just stoked to see that particular model Camaro again, because I loved it. It was a great car. Again, my grandfather had it forever until like maybe 2010, something like that. And I always wanted that car, but he had to get rid of it. The parts were getting so expensive to get back in the day. So that was like another thing that I could look at this show and say, wow, you know what? That was something positive that I really admired about this season. As dumb as that sounds. But, guys, I guess that's basically it for all the things I had to talk about here. Turbo sucks. Let's just be honest. It kind of just straight out sucks. Is it worth watching? Again, it kind of depends on what you're looking for. I am personally glad that I sat through this. Because I love Power Rangers, because I wanted to do a real review for you guys, even though it took me a while to get through this. I know the seasons from after In Space, I began to have them be shorter. I think they're like 30 episodes or something like that from that point on, which is a little bit better in my opinion. I'll get through them a little bit quicker for you guys. But this season had its moments for me, has its qualities, like the coloring being so beautiful, the Power Rangers costumes being sick, the first of the two Megazords being really cool, the original Divatox coming back and being a total babe, even in the new costume. I personally like a lot of it. I think I like a lot of it more than most people. But the new cast, the horrible fights from beginning of the season to the end of the season that get worse and worse as time goes on, all of those things get in the way of this show. They really harm it, and they really harm, to me, I guess, and what happened at the time maybe, the reputation of Power Rangers as a show for kids or anybody watching it. The martial arts is really toned down in this season, which kind of sucks. I don't know. I'm really not happy with the majority of it. But I'm glad that apparently In Space is a lot better. I remember it being better. The finale of the show was really well done. It was really hyped up and cool. How they lead into that In Space season is going to be really sick. I can't wait to see what they do with that too. But there's a lot of bad. Bulk and Skull being monkeys. Just the shrinking Power Ranger story we've done for the millionth time in all of media, not just Power Rangers. These things get in the way. The bad fights, the bad new cast. Again, I like them. It's the writing of them and the performances of them that are not good. Having a child be in high school. I have a lot of complaints, a lot of problems. I don't really recommend the season. It's pretty bad. But now I can look at other videos all over YouTube and actually listen to them and hear how people tear up the show for how bad it is, which will be fun because there's a lot of them out there. There's literally one video I've had in my list of why this is the first ever bad season of Power Rangers. I've been dying to see what that video has to say about this, and now that I finished it, I can probably guess most of it, you know? But I'll be curious to see if I can find out any info about behind-the-scenes stuff, like why Jason David Frank quit, why all of the cast pretty much quit at the time. I'd love to hear all that. But anyway, I'm excited to see what happens with the future of the show. Not going to start it immediately. I'm probably going to finish Twilight Zone and Mummy first, because I literally have one disc of each left. And you'll probably see reviews of those too, if you're curious about them. So tune in for that too. But anyway, when it comes to Power Rangers Turbo, don't waste your time if you're not into Power Rangers. This is not the place to start if you've never seen Power Rangers. It is a fucking mess of a show. Zeo had its issues, especially the old Japanese footage from Super Sentai being cut into the show there. This has worse problems with things like that. This has more inconsistencies than that show had. That show had better style, better colors, I would say, too. This one is the beginning of the fading of popularity of Power Rangers for my generation. A lot of people say that about Season 3 of Mighty Morphin and Zeo, and I agree with them on that, but I don't know anybody that saw this season of Power Rangers. Not one person in real life do I know that saw this season. So I'm kind of curious to hear what you all have to say about Turbo. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you love the movie? Did you hate that too? I'd love to hear all your thoughts about all this stuff down below. Are you excited to see what I have to say about it in space after like 20 years of not seeing it? 25, something like that? It's been a long time, man. Yeah, I would love to hear what you all have to say down below. Thank you all for watching, guys. God bless you all. Catch you later, and goodbye.